What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. Text us, 865-658-5824. I'm joined alongside Jacob in Wisconsin on the Minnesota border, right there next to enemy territory. Then we got Tim live in Green Bay at the Mecca. We're showing kind of a bad connection. Hopefully everything's clear enough that you can at least hear us. It looks like it's on the StreamYard side. StreamYard side is what it's saying here. So hopefully that'll straighten itself up. But Jacob, how you doing this morning, bub?
I'm good. I'm ready to go. Feel pretty jacked up. Got my diesel ready.
Diesel cranking. Let's go, man. That's what I'm talking about. I'm on my fourth shot of espresso, so I'm wired for sound over here, man. What about you, Tim? You get that diesel in you yet, bro?
Good morning.
There you go. 3 different personalities in here this morning for sure. Mandy hates me. I couldn't tell you how many times she's told me I hate you in the mornings because I'm such a morning person. I open my eyes, I'm ready to roll, man.
Yeah.
She's sitting on the couch looking at me like I'm,
not me at all.
I feel like Jacob's in between. It just depends on what happened the night before. You know what I'm saying? That time.
Oh, man, I'm up always. I'm up with the birds, man. I'm up usually around like 5 o'clock at the latest.
Yeah,
well, as long as the first thing you do is
wash your hands, wash your butt, man. That's it. That's all.
Got to get it started right. No doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. I know we've got Dave James in the chat here. I think he's in the land down under, I believe, if I remember correctly. Said, oh, man, it's almost midnight here. And I just told him, just grab a cup of coffee, man. Hang out. Ain't no big deal. Who cares if you got to work tomorrow, too? It don't matter. This pod is worth quitting your job over. All right. Now, I'm just joking. That's a joke there, all right? Don't take that as real advice, obviously. Have a bunch of people with knapsacks knocking on my door like, we're moving in, Clayton. You told us to quit our job. So there you go. Let's see what we got here in the chat. M. Smitty says, Clayton, love the Move the Sticks clips you posted. What's your thoughts on Bucky's take on Trotter Jr.? We're going to hit on that here in a second, M. Smitty. And I know I actually responded to you in the chat and said, I said, I love it, Smitty. I think you're going to see him start to rise again with teams going back and watching the tape. Just had to survive the combine season downgrade because he's one of those guys, he's going to take a hit with the measurables, right? But if you go back and watch the tape, you'll see he was an absolute freaking stud. On top of that, they actually had a really good conversation, they being Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah, talking about Drake May. And he talked to one team official that said, I had in my notes, may be better than Caleb Williams, something along those lines where he watched him live in person. And now all of a sudden Drake May's kind of dropping on boards a bit and JJ McCarthy's the new darling and this and that, right? So what happens is the end of the season, everybody's kind of got a good look at, all right, here's who these players are. And then as you get into the offseason, the media starts to buzz certain players up. They start to tear certain players down. Some of it's because they got connections with universities and coaches. And then in other occasions, what will happen is once you get into combine season, people start to realize the real measurements and they're going, oh, crap, this dude's shorter than he needs to be. This guy's, a little lighter than he needs to be or a little heavier in T'Vondre Sweat's case. And then you get into the combine and that throws a flux into things. So what happens is on the backside of the combine, everybody's looking up and all of a sudden things have just gotten shaken up. What teams do is they go back around the second time and watch the tape again, and it tends to kind of even things out a bit more. That's why hearing that every year is the reason that I get the majority of my information in as quick as possible into my draft board and then make slight adjustments as I go rather than, all right, let's wait until the combine's over. Now let's build the base of the board. Well, you're getting that base of the board built off of the current hype around these guys at the combine and the measurables. So I like to do it kind of in the opposite direction. So that makes sense, Jacob.
Makes perfect sense.
All right, because I know it's not the popular thing to do, but
say, Clayton, what happened to your beard?
I clean shave this morning. I got a couple things I need to take care of today. I had to go baby face on them. So you never know, man. You never know when that thing's gonna get broke back out. You know what I mean, Jacob? It's right here handy, dude. So you better not get out of line. You know what I mean? We'll pop that thing. Yeah. There you go.
All right. Possum in a dumpster.
The best part about that clip is how is why it's so low, right? And also you hesitate. Happy as a pop, Possum in a dose. So perfect. So all right, let's get into it. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Oh,
Sorry, you
that's
did it too. Too old for this. The feds got on Clayton for identity theft with the beard. No doubt about it, man. Mandy was cracking up, bro. She seen the video on the way back from the softball game last night. She was rolling. She said Emilio's reaction is what made the video. It was a combination of devastation and surprise. But anyway, never know what you're going to get on this stupid little show. All right, so we had a tweet from Tucker Kraft. I think it was here. When was this? I didn't get the timestamp on it, April 5th. So this would have been yesterday around 2:00 Eastern time. He shows him working out, obviously shows him doing some squats there, a little sweat dripping off the chin, says, "Don't build your house on sand, build it on me." So Tucker Kraft getting ready for year 2. Jacob, all the signs were there coming out of the draft. This dude, was he not a firecracker, man? He was just we laughed so hard at his draft day reaction too, didn't we?
I mean, yeah, we went through the whole laundry list of the Chuck Norris jokes as they apply to Tucker Kraft. By the way, the only thing in the world that can kill Tucker Kraft is a roundhouse kick to the face from Tucker Kraft. So I really do think that he is going to be one of those tight ends that ends up being just a baller. Because like you said, it took him maybe half the season before he seemed like it kind of clicked for him. But when it did, he was really looking like a really well-rounded tight end. And people forget that his RAS was off the charts for him being a big bodied dude. He moves pretty quick. So yeah, both of them are.
Yeah, Tim, you fired up for year 2 of Tucker Kraft here, man.
Oh man, I'm excited. You can see him putting in the work now, sweating out the bush lattes, coughing out the lung darts. It's time to get ready for business. I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, Tuck Norris is the man, dude. We are lucky and blessed to have him and Musgrave in that tight end room. You talk about a solid foundation right there, like he's saying. Future looks bright in Green Bay, man. I'm excited.
How do we not have a shirt, Tuck Norris? Like, there's got to be.
We got to get some kind of Tucker Kraft shirt made for sure, man. I'd rather just have him sitting on like a hay bale with a lung dart and a bush latte. That's what I would like. Just a silhouette, where it's him. Just kind of. Yeah,
or it looks like a country music album, just him like on a hay bale.
Photoshop waiting to happen. We need to do that. We need to find an old maybe an old Toby Keith album or something, right? Just put Tucker Kraft's face on it. That'd be fun. So all right. So again, some people are looking at that going, he's got plenty of time, man. Training camp ain't till July. Guys, the team reports for their first offseason stuff on, I think, April 15th. Like, we're literally 9 days away from Packers being back in the building. Maybe not all of them, obviously, but some of them. So we'll get a little bit of information coming out there too. So going to be interesting. All right, let's get right to the videos, or the audios, I should say. I recorded these, took them from Move the Sticks podcast with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks. Greg Cosell is like my number one film guy, right? If it comes to, okay, here's your head scout, you guys hear me say these aren't my opinion on prospects. I use the opinion of people that I trust. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I understand how to break down a prospect. And this guy, I really like him in this avenue, but I don't like him here. And here's the strength. I just don't get into that stuff. There's nothing wrong if you're one of those people that do. I just don't. I don't have enough confidence in myself to do that. To be honest with you, I haven't, been in a scouting room and know exactly what they're, looking for. Some people just say, it's as simple as just finding strengths and weaknesses. When you heard Femi Abimafe and Michael Lombardi break down the actual scouting sheet the other day, one position with the quarterback, he read it for like 10 minutes, talking about all the details that they're looking for at that position, all the measurables, all the things that they're kind of keyed in on. And then you talk about going back and watching third down and watching fourth quarter tape and specifying that into certain categories where it's, okay, here's how well he played under pressure. Here's how many first downs he converted in the fourth quarter when they were losing, like all those things. I just don't have the time to do all that. So Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks, in my opinion, are two of the best. Daniel Jeremiah more so than Bucky Brooks. And that's not a shot at Bucky. Bucky's great too. But DJ he's like my head scout, right? Basically, that's the dude that I go to for information. I can't wait till he gets his top 150 completed, because that's going to go into the draft board as well. But again, here they are talking about Chris Jenkins Jr. And I was telling Jacob about this, Tim, offline here. I knew it was Colin's nephew, right? It was Colin's nephew, and it just completely slipped my mind that his dad was Chris Jenkins. like that played for the Jet. I personally, and Packer fans are going to hate me for this, I personally think Chris Jenkins was better than Colin. And I don't know why, but I was just keyed in on the Packers connection there with Colin. But yeah, Chris was just a dominant force too. So anyway, here is Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah talking about Chris Jenkins Jr.
Those types of guys.
Let's go with Chris Jenkins from Michigan. And here's what I'll say about Michigan guys, man. I'm telling you, DJ, my perspective on Michigan guys changed with Rashawn Gary because I used to be so hung up on the production.
With who? Who did he? Yeah, he just said Rashawn Gary, right? I used to be hung up on the production. And he said, on Michigan guys changed with Rashawn Gary.
And they're like, man, they should be able to produce more. Like, why don't they have more? And then he gets to the league and becomes a Pro Bowl caliber player. Chris Jenkins has freakish athleticism, even though it's weird because, like, he makes Bruce Feldman's freaks list and you see all the numbers or whatever. And then he didn't really dazzle or impress at the combine. Like, didn't do that. Didn't even show at the combine. It was fine, but it wasn't that. But where he benefits to me, he benefits from the family business. His dad, Chris, his uncle, Cullen, those guys played for a long time in the league. And so much of being able to play in the league is the knowledge and know-how. I think he becomes a much better player as a pro than he was a collegian because he will be equipped with that knowledge in terms of how to survive and thrive inside.
Yeah, I mean, he ran well. I mean, he ran 4.91 at 299. I mean, that's pretty good. I think it's because maybe the expectation was he was going to go crazy.
I thought he was going to blow it out. I thought he was going to do what Braden Fisk did. That's what I was. Yeah. I was sitting there like, all right, here we go. Yeah. You're one of my guys. I got my little star on you, and yeah. So, but he's talented. Who do you think?
So when I look at those guys, if I was going to pick a day two guy that I think is going to hit, I'm going to stick with this kind of. I've been riding this train the whole time, and that's with Marshawn Nealon from Western Michigan. Yeah. I just think that rough, rugged profile. I saw it with Tui Pelotu last year doing the Charger games. That translates, man. I just think that power is in vogue right now as these offensive.
All right, so obviously he mentioned Marshawn Nealon there as well. Now let's go ahead and share the consensus big board here just to show you Marshawn Nealon where he sits right now. He peaked at 56. He's currently 60th. Now he's considered an edge defender according to the mock draft database. Okay. Now if we go back to Chris Jenkins, the one we were just talking about, he's coming in the 50 spot, but he peaked at 38. So there's another perfect example of a player that at one point was as high as 38 and now he's dropped down to 50. What happened there, right? Well, he didn't like tear the combine out of the frame. Solid combine, but he didn't absolutely shred it. So that's someone who's dropped, in direct reflection of that. Now, they've got him mocked at 42 to the Texans. So that would suggest, and again, this isn't everything, but it's just another exercise. That would suggest that if the Packers wanted him, they'd need to take him in the 41 spot, right, Jacob?
Yeah, it looks like it. And then he talked about Braden Fisk having such a great combine, and he looks right there. He's as high as he's ever been. Yep. Where he sits. So yeah, you can talk about the combine. We said sometimes it's not that impactful, but like we talked about, it seems like it's really impactful or really not impactful. And for Jenkins, I think it did have quite a bit of sway.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as the 33rd team, just to kind of cross check here again, the consensus big board has Chris Jenkins at 50, and then the 33rd team has him at 69. Okay, so that's how they have him sit. On my draft board, I have Chris Jenkins sitting in the 39 spot. So you see he's right around that 38 where he peaked on mine. And again, that's what my board kind of reflects. There's bonuses involved. He got a 3-point bonus because of the combine. I think he finished in the 8s, the RAS at one point, I believe, when I was taking the information in. Someone that PFF had really high going into the offseason. 33rd team at the time that I took this information in had him in the 61 spot, so he was significantly higher. So just something to keep an eye on. Again, Chris Jenkins in the 39 spot. Tim, I know how you feel about your former Packers, man. You're a diehard Packer fan through and through. It'd be pretty darn cool to somehow, some way get Chris Jenkins to kind of be potentially that defensive lineman of the future, not knowing if Kenny's future is going to be, this could be his last year. We may have him for another year or two. How cool would it be for Chris Jenkins to sit behind Kenny Clark and learn?
Oh, I've always said that, right? We don't just do that with quarterbacks, right? You can do that at any position group, it's always a good idea. Bring a rookie in, let him get his feet under him, let him learn from a veteran. And, Kenny's a great leader in that locker room and on the field, and would be a great guy to just, show a young talent the ropes. And the lineage and tradition continues, right, with the Jenkins family in the NFL. I mean, I'd be thrilled if he ended up being a Packer this year, but we'll see how the draft shapes out.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you look at Green Bay's picks, obviously we got pick 25, 41, 58, 88. So if Chris Jenkins is really on their radar and they were to draft him, right? If you look at the consensus big board once again, they've got Chris Jenkins going 42 to the Texans. Keep in mind, they've got T'Vondre Sweat going 59 to the Texans as well. That doesn't mean they're saying they're going to draft both of them. It just means in mocks, that's more the consensus. So it could be that they pass up on Chris Jenkins and take T'Vondre Sweat at 59 if T'Vondre Sweat somehow, some way falls that far, right? So when you look at Green Bay's picks, probably on the safe side, you'd want to take him at 41 to make sure you get him. But if the Texans were to go T'Vondre Sweat at 59, the Packers have the 58th pick, the pick before. That might be why they took him there, because Chris Jenkins was gone, because the Packers potentially took him in that mock. So just something to kind of keep an eye on in that regard as well. So that's kind of how it looks for the defensive line. Now, some people were saying we don't need a defensive lineman. We don't need a defensive lineman. I challenge you to go back and watch last year one more time because everybody thinks that because we used the first round pick on Devontae Wyatt, not everybody, but there's a good portion of the fan base. Because we used the first round pick on Devontae Wyatt, all of a sudden we're good there, right? I think we hit on Carl Brooks. I think we hit on Carl Brooks more than we hit on Devontae Wyatt, me personally. So you could look at it and say, okay, Carl Brooks could be the defensive lineman of the future. Well, with Kenny approaching 30 years old, I think he's going to be 29 this year, if I remember correctly, last year of his contract. If you're not completely sold on Devontae Wyatt being a well-rounded defensive lineman, and what I mean by that is, well-rounded defensive lineman, we're talking about someone who can play the run really well as the pass. Devontae Wyatt's a beast against the pass, man. He's one of the best pass rushing interior defensive linemen in the game, and that's definitely the most valuable aspect to a defensive lineman's game. It's most important, right, across the league. But if we're going to get better at stopping the run, you got to have guys that can play both sides there, right? That's what you've seen in Chris Jenkins. When we did our little exercise, Jerzon Newton was hands down the best defensive lineman at the time, right? I think I may have Byron Murphy higher than him now, but if when you look at it and you say, okay, Jerzon Newton is just a beast at rushing the passer, or maybe that's Byron Murphy, because he's got that quick twitch. When we looked at the exercise of the top 4 or 5 guys, Chris Jenkins fell kind of right in the middle of both. And what it really came out to was him being one of, if not my favorite defensive lineman, because he played the run just as well as he played the pass. He's not like a superstar at either. He's really, really good, borderline great in both. And that's the type of players you're going to have to get in here to stop the run. Now, do I think Goody's going to do that? Probably not, because Goody is all about the pass rush, man. I mean, you could tell. If there's one thing we've learned about commonality throughout Brian Gutekunst's draft classes here the last couple of years, he's really keen in on pass rush. Tim, we've talked about that over and over, haven't we?
That may be a little why we've struggled with the run defense here and there, especially in the trenches, so to speak. But I feel like Coach Half can, coach us out of that and get us in some better habits and at least be better. You're not going to be shutting the run down every time, but I think we could see a little bit better from this defense. And really, that's the hill we got to get over, man. If this defense rounds out and the offense continues to thrive, we're bringing Lombardi home. It's happening. So I'm all for beefing up the trenches and getting after it. I think this draft is going to be interesting. I know we're going to. I don't want to say I know. I feel it in my heart that we are. We're gonna bring a D lineman in. I don't know if it's going to be early, and I don't know if it's going to be one of these top tier guys that we've been talking about. But I do think we're going to get a body or two on that defensive line for sure.
Yeah. Dave James in the chat says, "How much would you say Hafley? How much say would Hafley have in the draft?" Dave, you're going to get a fight started. That's the big conversation right now, right, Jacob? Is Goody taking input from the coaches, right? And LaFleur's made his stance pretty, I don't know, pretty apparent that Goody doesn't talk to him about these, these signings and things. So when it comes to Jeff Hafley, I can't imagine Jeff Hafley would have more say than Coach LaFleur. I want to pretend like this isn't an issue. I want to pretend like that doesn't even exist, because I think it is important that coaches give feedback. But if I had to answer your question there, man, I would say probably very little say. At least it just feels like that. Now, I did hear someone else point out this too, and when things happen in real time, and then a year goes by, Jacob, and you forget about it, and then you can kind of revisit these moments on down the line. I remember people talking about and people in and around the building talking about how much Matt LaFleur loved Josiah DeGuara. That was like his guy. That was the guy that was going to unlock his offense. I think we would all agree Josiah DeGuara was a pretty big bust, right? I mean, it just didn't. Maybe it'll pan out in Jacksonville. I'm not here to dog the guy because he's not here any longer. I mean, it didn't work out. Jacob points to the jersey back there that the cat tried to tell us. But part of this is just how my mind fires, man. And listen, I'm Irish. I'm an Irish redneck, right? Immediately, I think if he did have say in that, and it's like, yeah, this is my guy, and then he just ends up being one of the biggest busts, maybe Goody's sitting back going like, hey, like, let me handle the picks here, Matt. You completely swung and missed on that one. But I do remember people talking about how he was really, really excited about the Jordan Love pick, and it kind of felt like Matt LaFleur helped Goody. I don't want to say helped Goody, but gave a lot of input on, hey, this is the type of quarterback I would want for my offense. So if that's the case, there's a positive there, right? So just something to kind of keep an eye on.
I'm sure Goody probably says something along the lines of, hey, is there anyone you like? Anyone you got your eye on? And he's probably got a little short list from his coaches, but at the end of the day, he's making the decisions.
Right. SDM40 in the chat says, I have to disagree that Goot and the staff don't communicate. It may not happen every day on every move, but Matt LaFleur has said they talk. Matt LaFleur just got through saying he's not included in those conversations. So I don't know how to answer that one, SDM40. Again, I've never seen a clip of Matt LaFleur saying, yeah, me and Goody talk about this stuff. I have seen clips of Matt LaFleur saying I'm not in on these conversations. So I hope it ain't true, but it is what it is.
Think about this. As of this point, I would have to say,
and it's tough, ain't it? Read it to the podcast or to everybody on the pod there.
Coach Len asked, did Goot swing and miss with the Dillon pick? Obviously being AJ Dillon. I think it would.
Those of you listening on the pod.
I think it's fair to judge for sure at the end of this year. If not, if we have to decide from right now, I'd say it's a bust. But I'm willing to wait one more year.
You leave the mayor of Door County alone.
John Deere green on a hot summer night. He rode Billy Bob loves Charlene.
I love it. How in the world can you watch that video and call him a bust, Jacob? Like, we got so much value out of that AJ Dillon pick. Now, when it comes to Dillon, I kind of look at the players much like Mark Towser does. And I know Towser's a former player. Him and Jason Wilde had an interesting conversation the other day where they were talking about AJ Hawk. I think it was yesterday. And Wilde kind of started the conversation, and I'm not trying to put words in his mouth. This is just me as a listener, as a viewer of the show on a daily basis. It kind of felt like Goody was saying AJ Hawk was a bust. Now, Mark Towser got pretty heated. Now, keep in mind, him and AJ Hawk are buddies, but he was like, how can you say a guy that played 12 years in the league, right, won a Super Bowl and was a team captain and the all-time tackle leader in Packers history was a bust? And then that's when Willie said, I'm not saying he's a bust. I'm just saying he didn't live up to the expectations of that top 5 pick. That's kind of two separate conversations, right? Really, the same thing could be applied to the A.J. Dillon pick. If we had taken him in the 5th round, we'd go, that was a good pick. We got a lot of use out of that. But you take him in the 2nd round, you look at it totally different. And I tend to lean toward Mark Towser's approach where Mike McCarthy 101. There are no bad players in the NFL. Some people are going, did you not watch Mark Sanchez play quarterback? But Coach McCarthy said there are good players and there are great players. And sometimes the difference between a good player and a great player is the position they're put in, what they're surrounded with, the scheme they're put in, right? How you marry that up. more times than not, I think GMs and front offices, they go, yeah, this player, he's got enough raw talent. He's really good at this, but we can make him better and have him do this. You know, go look at Demarius Randall, perfect example, right? That was a guy that it was just like, yeah, you know, he can be, you know, he can be a safety, or I think it was, yeah, he came out, he was going to be a corner. They tried to move him to a safety. It was like, well, we can just make that work. And you end up, I don't want to say you ruined his career, but you just, being mediocre at multiple things just makes you mediocre. It doesn't make you a valuable commodity. You got to be good at doing your job. That's Bill Belichick 101. That's how you win 6 championships, right? So, and it's to bring it full circle, Bill Belichick obviously got the most championships in league history. He was a coach GM, you know. Few and far between, I would imagine, of how many of those actually exist, but I think that is definitely a dying breed when it comes to the NFL. But yeah, so with Dylan, yeah, I think Coach Lynn hits on it here. He says, love Dylan, but second round is rich. I agree. Now, why did they fall in love with him? That RAS, right? That RAS was in the mid 9s, if I remember correctly. I mean, he was just, how does a guy run that fast 40 and have legs like that, have, you know what I mean, carry all that extra weight and just an absolute bulldozer? Sometimes you fall in love with that stuff rather than tape. Exactly. Last year, I thought he was really underrated in the passing game. You know, I thought he was very, very effective. He was actually more effective than Aaron Jones in the passing game. Outside of week one,
targeted more in the passing game too, I think.
Yeah, it did feel like that. Now, week 1, obviously, you've seen vintage Aaron Jones on the angle route take it to the house against the Bears, but the rest of the season, it's like they just couldn't put it together with Aaron Jones when he did finally get healthy, at least in the passing game. So, I think that the market really, it uncovers everyone's true value in everyday life and in football. What did we learn about A.J. Dillon hitting the open market? He's worth a minimum contract. That's essentially what it came down to, right? So he couldn't get more than $1 to $2 million on the market. So you tag that little 4th year, or that little 4-year option, whatever it was called, and I think he's on the hook. What will most likely be somewhere around $2 to $2.5 million cap hit, maybe as little as $1.5 million. So, but I'm a big A.J. Dillon fan. I hope he comes out and lots it up this year and earns himself a contract. That's what I hope we see. But yeah. All right, so let's move on to linebackers. Some people were asking, or there was a comment up here. This was really interesting. Do you rant in the chat says, go double Michigan picks in the 2nd round, Jenkins and Colson. Yes, absolutely. Completely agree. So when you look at the consensus big board, I'll leave this up as we play this video. Of course, I guess the video will overtake it here. So we'll get back to the consensus big board here in just a second. But this is Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah talking about linebackers. And I love how they do these exercises, because they actually asked, hey, you know, who would you take here in the 2nd round? Like, if you had to pick one to say, okay, would they be a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker type approach? The way that Daniel Jeremiah words these questions, it really pulls the true information out of people, so they can't just do coach or scout speak, right? This is a really cool breakdown of the linebackers, and just to kind of give you an idea of 2 former NFL scouts and how they feel about this linebacker class, more specifically a couple of them that they like more than the others. But here we go.
2nd round, 3rd round type linebackers, you get to let's go. I mean, I think we can really have your pick, because I think there's a chance we don't have one going 1. So that's, you're talking about Edgerrin Cooper, you're talking about Peyton Wilson, Junior Colson, Cedric Gray, Trevin Wallace. You know, that's a whole host of guys there. If you've got to pick, and I said,
I've already
said next year, Buck, one of these guys is a Pro Bowler next year. Which one is it?
Well, I mean, look, let me take Peyton Wilson off, because I felt like I've had the Peyton Wilson party for like last 2 weeks. So let's take him off. When I look on tape, and some of this is bloodlines or whatever, to me, Jeremiah Trotter makes a lot of plays just on instincts and those things. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., he makes a lot of plays on instincts and awareness, and he just kind of has an innate feel for the position. And as we always talk about, like, so much of like success is tied to where you go and what style you play. DJ, I think if Jeremiah Trotter Jr. gets into a system that allows him to kind of do what he does best, which was see ball, get ball, like he did at Clemson, he can be an impact player. Now, we talk about Pro Bowl stuff. I put my Pro Bowl stuff on Peyton Wilson, but I think this guy will be a solid starter who, at the end of the year, we're like, man, this dude really played really well for this team.
All right, so I want to pause it for just a second. He said if you put Jeremiah Trotter Jr. in a spot where he can just play ball, get ball, you're talking about a zone defense that's facing the quarterback at all times. We're going to play more man coverage this year. We're still going to play more zone than man. That's common knowledge across the league, right? There's no such thing as a team that plays more man coverage than zone coverage. It just doesn't exist. Unfortunately, what he's saying about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. would have been perfect for the Packers defense last year, where we're playing a lot more zone than man. It doesn't mean he can't play in a man coverage system. It doesn't mean we can't play what we call cover one drop or cover one hole where he's playing the hole there, the middle zone in a cover one look, right? With a little spy on the QB, eyes on the QB reading the pass. But just wanted to point that out, that's the first thing that triggered in my mind was, well, crap, we're 1 year late for a Jeremiah Trotter Jr. being built perfect for a defense. It doesn't mean he can't play in a man coverage defense, but you're definitely not playing to his strength there. And go back to the Demarius Randall conversation, right?
Yeah, I would go Peyton Wilson too. As if I was going to say one of these guys is a Pro Bowler next year, that'd be probably my most popular pick because he'll make splash plays that'll get attention. What he does there, I think Junior Colson, just in the similar vein of David Harris when he was coming out of Michigan.
Oh yeah,
inside linebacker, green dot, running the show,
make the call, physical.
All that. I like that profile.
I don't think you can ever go wrong with tough, high effort guys. I think they just kind of find a way to get it done. And like for teams, and I mean, we'll talk about your guy later. I've never been more impressed with a press conference than Jim Harbaugh and the strength coach from the new strength coach for the Chargers.
All right, so I don't like to say I told you so. I cringe when people do that, but I feel like finally we're getting to the point of the draft season where I'm going, okay, I wasn't losing my mind when I was excited about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Junior Colson. That's literally the two names they mentioned the most there. And because they were so long that I'm like, I think I am the only person on the face of the earth that likes these two linebackers. And it doesn't mean that Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is over Peyton Wilson, right? It doesn't mean that at all. As you can see here, we pull up the consensus big board. They've got Peyton Wilson 1, Edgerrin Cooper 2, Junior Colson 3, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. 4. Again, let's go back to where they peaked at. Peyton Wilson peaked at 30. He's sitting at 40. Edgerrin Cooper is sitting at 42. He peaked at 29. Junior Colson is at 53. Tim, he peaked at 20. At one point, he was the 20th highest prospect in the draft, and he drops to 53. This is after the season is over. Like what in the world could have happened for him to drop 33 spots all of a sudden? So I think
he get caught with the giggle bush, did he?
I don't think he did. I could be wrong. Jacob would know that. Jacob keeps up that information, I believe. We're going to allow him to keep up with any trouble off the field, if you will. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., here's another one. Jacob, look at this, dude. 89th on the big board. He peaked at 34. And it's all because of that combine. It's all because of underwear season, right?
Underwear season for sure. It is, I mean, we've talked about how the differences in linebacker are kind of staggering depending on what site you use. I mean, look down there. Yeah, Trevin Wallace is one we've talked about too. That Marist as a guy I've seen up and down on the draft boards. So it's going to be, I don't know. I still kind of lean like you've talked about Junior Colson. The more we learn about these guys, it just seems like he's that maybe one of the only true plug and play middle linebackers, like with the green dot. It just seems like he's next level ready. So I'd keep an eye on him for sure.
Yeah, and people talk about that too, right? They talk about, when you describe what a 4-3 backer does, right? And more specifically, the will and the mock. If we were to pop this up here real quick, the mock is middle linebacker, captain of the unit, and gap destroyer against the run. Key, the read defender, right? Both pre-snap and at the heart of zone coverages. The will, the most athletic player in this group, is generally the weak side linebacker, known for his elite open field tackling on cutbacks and his zone coverage ability in the flats. Everyone you talk to says, you want Quay playing will, you want Quay playing will. I mean, it describes Quay to a T right here, the most athletic player in this group. And then you hear Daniel Jeremiah say, Junior Colson, slap the green dot, put him out there in the mock, and let him go to work, right? So it kind of feels like if you were to draft Junior Colson, He'd be your green dot. You free Quay up to play weak side backer and Sam on certain occasions and just turn him loose, right? That's kind of what it feels like to me. I hope that's the case because you guys know Junior Colson is hands down my favorite linebacker in this draft, man. I absolutely love the dude. If I look on my big board here, just to give you guys a quick reminder, I got Junior Colson in the 52 spot. They've got him sitting at 53 here personally. So when you look at why he's ranked a little bit lower, the thing that drags him down on my board is the consensus big board right at the end of the year. He had peaked, like we said, at one point, he had peaked at the 20 spot, and now he's sitting at 53. At one point, he was in the 85 spot. So I kind of took him at his lowest, too, there at one point. 142 is the number I've got on the 2022 PFF grade. So he was the 142nd graded linebacker, evidently, in 2022. So something to keep an eye on there.
Cedric Gray is a Mike as well. If, we don't end up with Junior Colson.
Right.
Cedric Gray. And depending on what board you look at, I mean, 33rd team's got Cedric Gray 38th on their top 100. I'm not sure where. So he's coming in here 95th on NFL mock draft database. So again, you see the discrepancy depending on who you're looking at and how they're viewing these players.
Yeah. And when you jump over to the 33rd team, it's much different, right? Than you're seeing here with the consensus big board. They've got Junior Colson 36 as a top linebacker in the draft, or top mock, I should say. Then they've got Cedric Gray at 38. So you're seeing Cedric Gray here on the consensus big board sitting at 95. On the 33rd team, you got him in the 38 spot, the second best mock linebacker. Like you said, too, Jalen Ford, or I think it was Jake's big on Jalen Ford, just to see the drop-off for mock linebacker. And, again, it doesn't mean that they won't take like a Peyton Wilson and try to make him a mock. This is just the 33rd team and how they classify these linebackers between mock and will.
Peyton Wilson, 40 on both boards. So that's every once in a while you get something that kind of lines up.
Right. And you got Colson at 36, Gray at 38, and then at mock it drops all the way down to 167 for Jalen Ford. So what you're going to see is teams that need a true mock linebacker, if they're seeing the backers the same way the 33rd team side is seeing them, you're going to have two guys there, right? You might have a high demand with a low supply, which means these guys may be taken a little earlier than you're seeing here on the consensus big board. When you look at Cedric Gray, there is no mock for him. There is no mock for Junior Colson, right? You've got Edgerrin Cooper. Obviously, it's not considered a mock by the 33rd team going in the 38 spot. And Peyton Wilson, who's not considered a mock according to the 33rd team, who will go 53. So it's more – this is where you got to kind of dig a layer deeper and say, okay, are these teams truly seeing Junior Colson and Cedric Gray as mocks and Peyton Wilson and Edgerrin Cooper as more of a will? If that's the case, then the value may drop in that regard. It doesn't mean the value is going to drop on Junior Colson and Cedric Gray. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
do you think we we said going into this draft season here that we could take, as many as probably two linebackers in the draft. Do you think they take a Will and then they take a Mike? Or do you think they aren't really looking at position? They're looking more at, we know they're looking at RAS, but are they looking at, other factors just in, other than positional need?
I think what you're doing, Tim, is you're building your roster with the understanding that what personnel is going to be on the field the most, right? That's the number one thing. Some people go, we're running a 4-3 now. We need three great linebackers. You're going to be a nickel 70 to 75% of the time. What that means is if you spend extremely high draft choices on two linebackers, right? Let's say you go out and something goes haywire and you go first round pick, you're going to get a middle linebacker or you're going to get a linebacker. And then in the second round, you get a linebacker. Well, guess what? You spend a second round pick on a guy who's not going to be on the field 25% of the time because you're in nickel so often. So what we're looking at is you got Quay, and I'm not saying McDuffie can't be a starting linebacker. I'm not saying that Eric Wilson can't be. I think that their contracts reflect what the team thinks of them. They're probably not the guy, right, as far as a starter goes. So you need a linebacker to start alongside Quay. I think Quay can play Mike, but based on the description that coaches are giving me, he's more of a will. So that says, okay, they're going to need a mock linebacker. I think what they'll do is try to get one linebacker fairly early and go, okay, let's give him a shot to start alongside Quay in that new nickel 4-2-5, and then try to get another linebacker a little later, maybe someone like a Jalen Ford, or even if we were to add Will to this list, let's see who else kind of pops up a little later. Maybe a Trayvon Wallace, who they've already met with, right? They got a 6.5 grade on him. And just for you guys who are wondering, these grades on the right here, let me get this off. I don't even have it on the screen. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. The 33rd team just does an excellent job at this stuff, man. I love it. So to see how the 33rd team breaks it down, this includes, notice I put Mike and Will on here, right? So you got both sets of linebackers. You got Junior Colson at 36 as a Mike linebacker. You got Cedric Gray at 38 as a Mike linebacker. Then you got your first Will backer in Peyton Wilson, okay, in the 40 spot. Then Trayvon Wallace at 62. Then it drops all the way down. They got Edgerrin Cooper at 161. Did you notice most people have Edgerrin Cooper as like the top linebacker, right, Tim? You've seen it all over the place. And I think DJ actually has him in his top 50. But notice how neither of those scouts just talked about him when they talked about their favorite linebackers. They mentioned Peyton Wilson, that, hey, we've talked enough about Peyton Wilson, so they're pretty. But Edgerrin Cooper's just kind of sitting there like, that's the way it works me.
Kind of like Jake Shavink was talking about last night, right? We got to those later rounds, those later picks, and we kind of addressed linebacker there. There was still some value. It's all going to depend on how this shapes out. I mean, even like Jacob was saying too, like he likes guys like Dallas Gant. Jordan McGee's another name that comes up there. I mean, these guys are super low on the 33rd team board.
Look up, if you scroll all the way up here too, they got Edifon Olafosio as I think he said Will number 4.
Yeah.
PF, he's going in the late 7th right there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's going to be a handful of players that we look up when we're doing our live draft show, and we're going to go, how in the world are they still available? It happens every year. Yeah. And you're going to see some that go there in the first and second round, Tim, that we're going to be saying this.
Who?
All night long. That's the beauty of the draft, man.
For sure. Guys, I got to take off. I'm heading to the Packer Pro Shop. The tent sale is happening today. So
go get that deal, Tim.
I'll do what I can. I'll let you know if I see anything.
Venmo you like $100 and just have it go.
Hey, I see Mark Murphy was out there yesterday kind of hanging out. So if you run into Mark Murphy, give him one of these, Tim.
Who do you think you are? I am.
You know what I'm saying? So,
you got it. I'll be sure to do that.
All right,
I'll see you guys this afternoon, right? We're jumping on with Jake Shavink.
Yes, we are. We're going to be on Jake's channel at 2 Central doing some mock draft extravaganza. I'm excited about it. It's going to be a tough exercise. He's going to run us through the ringer. That's what he does over there, man. So he's gonna try to take every single decent player before we pick is what he's going to do. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see you over at Tim.
All right, guys. Have a good one. See you later.
Yeah, man. See you. All right. So with the linebackers here, as we get ready to wrap this little segment up, the grades is what I want to hit on. If we got people that are kind of new here and haven't heard us talk about the grades, you'll notice a 6'6", 6'6", 6'6", 6'5", then it drops to a 5'9". Those are true NFL grades. That's how the scouting department at NFL teams, that's how they grade the players. You'll hear people say, I give him an A, or I give him, whatever. Some people do a 0 to 100 basis score. This is how the NFL actually grades players. All right. So what's a 6'6"? Here are the ranges first. Let's go right on down the line. A 7+ is an immediate starter with all pro potential. A 6.7 to a 6.9. You'll hear them refer to them as 67s and 69s. Okay. Are strong starters. A 65 to a 66 are lower end starters. And then a 62 to a 64 is a limited starter or multi-position backup. Think of like an Isaiah McDuffie or an Eric Wilson type, right? A 60 to a 61 is a developmental player, someone who's maybe got a high ceiling, like, okay, we're going to be able to make something out of this. A 55 to a 59 is a backup quality player, and then a 54 is a priority free agent, someone that probably shouldn't be drafted, okay? So when you look at the grades and how these guys fall, lower end starter 66. So they're looking at Junior Colson, Cedric Gray, and Peyton Wilson as lower end starters with a 66 grade, right? Now, you've still got with the 65, a lower end starter, but obviously they've got Trayvon Wallace a little bit lower than Peyton Wilson, Cedric Gray, and Junior Colson. This is all according to the 33rd team. So Edgerrin Cooper, they've actually got a 59 on him, Jacob. Like that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's wild, isn't it?
Like a big gap. I mean,
Yeah.
so basically they're only saying that there's 4 linebackers that are worth taking in, semi-high rounds.
Right. So let's look at Edgerrin Cooper and see if we can figure out, like, why does he drop it? 6'2", 230, good size there, right? 4-year junior, a little bit younger. 161st overall, third of this position, a 5.9 grade. It says Cooper is an explosive straight line athlete who has sufficient instincts and awareness, but lacks the frame and strength to play the run on a consistent basis. All right. So strengths are play speed, range, and blitzing ability. Weakness is pass coverage, stoutness, and toughness. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see where Edgerrin Cooper goes, because again, there's no in between, man. It's like everybody's got him at the top, or they've got him lower like this. That always blows my mind how some can have a player as the best, and others like, oh no, he's not even worth a top 50 pick. I don't know, man. It's just wild to me. So, is there anything else you want to look at here on the big board? Any kind of position or anything like that while we got it pulled up, Jake?
No, I'm pretty good on that. I mean, it is just weird that it seems like an odd draft where like you get your linebackers have it in those bunches where you have those few in the high end there, and then there's a gap. Seems like the running backs had that big gap. The safeties we talked about have that giant gap. So it is. I would love to see obviously what this board looks like compared to most NFL teams to see how if there really is that drastic of like in the safety groupings, for instance, here you see how it drops off pretty drastically.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, man. Look at AFM in the chat. So I'm still shook from seeing Clayton's bare chest. There you go. So if we take a quick peek at safety as we get ready to wrap up here, Tyler Nubin, they got in the 24 spot with a 67. So if we were to let's add the linebackers in with them, just to kind of give you guys an idea of how they're seeing these safeties compared to the linebackers. They got Tyler Nubin with the 67, Cam Kinchins with the 67, their 30th ranked prospect. This may change before the draft too. It's why I like to look at it early on before things get shifted around. There's got to be a reason they thought so highly of these players in these specific moments. So you can see they've got the 2 safeties, Nubin and Kinchins, graded slightly higher than Junior Colson, Cedric Gray, and Peyton Wilson at linebacker, right? And again, if you look at the grading scale, 67 to a 69 is a strong starter, not a lower end starter, a strong starter. So they're thinking that Tyler Nubin and Cam Kinchins can really help their teams at the safety position, which is funny because we talk about how weak this safety class is, right, Jake?
Yep.
So,
Yeah, can you scroll down so we can see that drop off? How quickly it does? Yes, yeah, so 6-4. Look at Keaton Aladapo.
And remember what Daniel Jeremiah said? There's bundles, there's clusters of players in that second wave at both safety and running back. You're seeing it right here, right? When you get to 84, look at this. 84, Cole Bishop, safety. That's the one that Greg Cosell was crazy about. He loved Cole Bishop. 85, you got Jaden Hicks. 86, Oladapo, or Oladapo, sorry. 91, you got Javon Bullard. 92, you got Taylor Demerson. That's one that Emilio
loves.
Yeah. Malik Mustafa at 93, Jalen Simpson at 96. So literally from the 80 spot to the 100 spot, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 safeties in that spot. So you're going to see a run on those guys in the second round. I think second to third round, the safety's going to start flying off the board. So just interesting to see. And again, they've got on all those players in that range, as far as safeties from 84 to 100, they got the 64 grade on. And again, 64 is limited starter or multi-position backup. So on the cusp of being what you refer to as a lower end starter. So there you go. All right. Any other thing? Anything else you want to see here, Jacob, on the board?
Let's maybe just take a peek at running backs real quick, just to see the drop off in that grouping as well, because I think certain people think that we are going to go. I mean, like that mock draft we did just last night, I picked Audric Estime, which I never take Estime or anybody that high, but just felt like a weird position where the Packers might take a swing on him if he is just sitting there.
Right.
I didn't realize that they had him ranked as the second overall running back here on the 33rd, which is kind of cool. But they have, again, what is that? 5 guys all at the same grouping, and then it drops off drastically, or
Yeah, that's what Daniel Jeremiah was talking about, the running back. You got 65 grades on all these players. Ranked, I'm going to say they're ranking, but keep in mind their grades are 65s, okay? Trey Benson, 60. Audric Estime in the 65 spot. Jonathan Brooks at 66. Will Shipley at 67. Blake Corum at 75. And then Bucky Irvin drops down at 113 to a 63 grade. So at the 65 grade, you've got Corum, Shipley, Brooks, Estime, and Benson. Benson is hands down my favorite running back in this draft. I love him. I know some people are looking at Audric Estime going, Clayton, how dare you? I love Notre Dame, but I'm telling you, Trey Benson, I think, is going to be a really good running back. Again, it doesn't mean he's going to be on the level of like a Jahmyr Gibbs or a Bijan Robinson from last year. Those are guys that probably had 67, 68 grades on them, right? We're talking about simply this year. What's that?
So you're thinking it looks like there could be a decent run in the second round here on a lot of these backs, right? Because let's see, can you scroll? Yeah.
I kind of feel like it'll probably be the third round when they really start flying off. I could be wrong, just because running back doesn't carry as much value across the NFL. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know how we talk about, I guess a good comparison, how we talk about quarterbacks are usually taking one tier higher than they're actually worth. I feel like running backs are taking one tier lower than their actual grade.
This it'd be the third. Yeah, it'd be right around the 64 is the start of the third round.
Yeah, there's our boy Dylan. How do you say that? Is that Lob?
I've heard Lobby.
Lobby. What do you think about Dylan Lobby, Jake? Does he still creep you out?
I feel like I would not let him in a room with my sister or my mother or my grandmother.
My grandmother. Oh my God.
My Iguana, or anybody I care about.
It's just something, man. We probably shouldn't be like this, but I'm just telling you, the way every time the camera popped up near a group of the running backs at the combine, he wanted to get in the camera.
He reminded me of Quagmire for some reason. And even that photo of him, giggity.
Dude, I'm glad someone else felt that way, because when I watched it, I was just like, this dude just seems, what's the Packers draft, and we'll have to love him.
Yeah, right.
But again, I don't know, man. Ben Holden saying, Clayton, what about your boy Tyrone Tracy? Let's take a look. Let's see how they feel about him, because he's one of those guys I think is going to surprise people. They've got him in the 146 spot, 6-year senior with a 62 grade on him. He was a former receiver, switched to running back. That's someone that Greg Cosell raved over as well. So I would not be surprised if Tyrone Tracy gets drafted a little higher than he might sit on boards, just because the buzz around him a little bit. But also, I could see you looking up. I shouldn't say what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it. When I think of Tyrone Tracy, I think of 4th, 5th, 6th round pick, Jacob, and I think of Aaron Jones. I think of someone that's like you're gonna come out and go, whoa, this dude, man, this was a steal of the draft. I don't know, man. It's just there's something about him that hopefully, if he stays healthy, 5'11", 209 is a pretty good build for a running back. Let's look at his scouting report real quick, since we're taking a peek at running backs. I'd like to see what the 33rd team says about him. I know how Greg Cosell feels about him as well. He's from Indy, 146 spot, 62 grade, which is a limited starter or multi-position backup. Well, I talked about just kind of a role player. If we don't get a running back that we want there around round 2, 3, or 4, then maybe you take him a little later, and you can get some production out of him in the passing game. It says Tracy is a shifty running back with good vision and patience, and he has ability to break tackles and make plays, but his breakaway speed and overall athletic ability will hold him back from being a starter at the next level. Loose athlete, passing game impact, and creation and playmaking ability are the strengths. Who does that sound like? Like, seriously, think of Aaron Jones and how he played. Loose athlete. Think how loose his hips were and how shifty, right? Passing game impact. That's something that Aaron Jones made his hay, early on. Jamal Williams was more of the running back, and you get to those third down sets, Aaron Jones would come out of the backfield and catch the ball, right? And then creation and playmaking ability. Creation meaning one thing, guys. Creation meaning when something's not there, he can make it happen, right? He can create that space with his maneuverability. Now, he's raw. There's no doubt about it. His weaknesses are inexperience at the position, like I said, converted wide receiver, disciplined instincts as a runner. Obviously, that's going to come with time. and he has little to no power. That doesn't sound like Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones surprised us with power in his running game, didn't he? Like,
He's pretty explosive though. Look at that vertical 40 inch vert for being 5'11",
broad jump, 10-4.
10'4". Yeah.
Yeah. Passing game impact is where his value is. Special teams value too. I didn't even think about that. So there you go. Play speed's a 6. So that's one of my draft crushes, Tyrone Tracy Jr. out of Purdue. We'll see.
And I think I was telling Clayton about Ryan had a podcast that released this morning. If you guys can get a chance, go over and check it out. He basically took SIS data and somehow quantified what each position group in the NFL, what the peak is. So say it's Travis Kelce was obviously the highest tight end. So then he somehow quantified what the gap between the Packers position and the top person at that position was. And no surprise that running back, because of the fact also that we lost Jones and that we got Jacobs, who had a really bad year last year, our running back group by far and away was one of the worst groups in the league. But if you were to pop in Jacobs' numbers from the year before, he was one of the best, if not the best running backs personally. But our running back group still is so low with Dillon and Wilson that we were one of the worst running back positional groups. So the area that we could improve the most from the exercise he did was still running back 2 and running back 3. So it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is. I have to go check that out for sure, man. Yeah, so Coach Lynn in the chat says, can he punt return? I'm pretty sure he can, Coach.
Yeah.
I haven't watched many of his special team snaps, but I'm sure he can. He just seems like kind of that top, right? Yeah, Ben Holden here says, Tyrone Tracy, running back receiver, Tyreek Hill. You know, as much as I would love for that to be the case, Ben, the thing that made Tyreek Hill drop in the draft was personal issues, right, Jacob? Like he was always getting. I think he got into several things in college, so the Chiefs took a flyer on him. Tyrone Tracy, I think he dropped. You know, what I'm trying to say is Tyreek Hill dropped in the draft because of off the field troubles, right? Tyrone Tracy dropped in the draft because he's not as good of a player. So I don't want to, you know what I mean, build up. Chuck Goodman. This is what I love about draft season right here. Chuck Goodman says Tracy is old. Pass. Every year we got the group of people that say nope, too old, and it's like, okay, how old is he? He's 24. I got it. Okay, and then when you draft someone who's 21, you got half the people going, it's going to take a couple years. He's young. It's like, all right, there you go. You know what I'm saying, Jacob? Like every year it's either a player's too old or they're too young. There's never you can't look at the positive of him being a couple years older with some more football experience. You can't look at it being, you know, the positives of him being younger and getting 2 more years out of his career. Well, do you have a preference there?
The only position group that I guess I do kind of see a little bit logic in that is the running back position, just because they typically do have such a shorter career or lifespan or whatever. But I mean, honestly, it's like a lot of these guys, the reasons they're 6-year seniors this year is because of that stupid COVID crap that happened. And a lot of them that just got transfer portaled, and the running back position just seems like it's an easy one to plug and play. It's sad to say that as the position's kind of evolved, that, you know, we see it in the draft and the way that the free agency market lines up. It's just not a lot of people can play running back. They have a lot of people that wants to play running back. So I don't know.
Right. And as far as like the trend going toward players being older now, I think it's going to continue to happen because of what's going on with NIL and now them potentially trying to make the NCAA. It sounds like they're trying to run the NCAA out of town, and another group, which is, this is wild. Some people are looking at like, oh, this is just conspiracy, but they're talking about making college football basically professional football, kind of like a minor league, you know, if you will. And the people that are just rolling their eyes at it, like they don't understand the person who's spearheading the talks for potentially doing this is Roger Goodell's right-hand man. I can't remember his name, but I was like, who is this guy? And I looked, I'm like, oh, wow, he is in Goodell's back pocket. So I think what I'm getting at is I think you're going to see college players come in a little bit older from here on out because, first of all, they're making millions of dollars in college already. There are guys, there's a good chunk of guys that are making more money their junior and senior year in college from NIL than they would make in the NFL. So why in the world would they go to the NFL that early? You know what I'm saying? Like you can make that money right there in college. I'm not saying I like it. It's just, it's a fact. That's what's going on right now. So I think you're going to see players, the average age of players that are drafted, I think, is going to slightly increase as we get into the next year or two. If it isn't already, like you said, COVID is the big thing right now, where you got those 6-year seniors. But yeah, I think the next few years you're probably going to see that trend continue, unfortunately. So you're going to get to the point where you're only going to have a handful of guys that's not too old. What do you do? Just not draft people because they're 24. So Do You Rant says Tracy was a wide receiver and has only been a running back for 1 year, so lots left on that body. So that's the other thing they don't look at. Do You Rant? It's a great point. Like you'll look at a running back and go, oh, well, he's 28 years old, and he had half the carries of a running back who's 26. It's like, that body's a lot fresher than obviously the 26-year-old who's, had a ton of carries, been in the top 5, top 10 in carries every single year. So it's definitely something you got to take into consideration. Like Derrick Henry going to Baltimore, he may go up there and rip it up. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits the wall early too, because that dude has been just ran into the ground, right? So that's why when people are saying maybe he can go to Green Bay at $10 million per, I was going, please God, no.
Bro, I'll tell you one thing though. I've sat next to that man before multiple times, and I had to catch myself just being like,
he's massive, dude.
I was like, bro, I can't even just imagine putting my arms down, and if he was decided to run at me, being like, I'm gonna tackle him.
No doubt. He's a mammoth, and they say you're not going to find a nicer guy.
So nice.
Yeah.
So really, really, really nice. It was almost shocking how nice he was.
Yeah. You kind of get to that point in your career, you've made your money. When a player like that who's been ran into the ground decides I'm going to continue playing, it shows you how much they love a game. Because I could see I know how my knees feel, and I've never played a snap of football. I can only imagine waking up every morning what those guys feel like. Icebound, man, not including that. And we're just talking in season. We're not even talking about the off-season training and everything. So, yeah. Coach Lynn says Lambeau Field looks so dope. I agree, man. How blessed are we as a fan base, dude? Have Lambeau Field, the organization too. I know everybody's got their faults and stuff. They're when it comes to like Mark Murphy, I think Mark Murphy's done a hell of a job. Brian Gutekunst's one of, if not the best GMs in the league. Yes, you'll hear us disagree with stuff. That's what cracks me up. I get labeled a Goody hater because I disagree when he does stuff that I disagree with. And then when I agree with the move and brag about his draft class, I get called a Goot licker too. It's like, I wish those people could get together and figure out which one I am. You know what I'm saying?
Pick a lane.
Exactly. So Mike Berry gets straight to the point here, Jake. He said, hit Jim harder, Jake.
I'm going right after.
I'm going to put my beard on and go too, man. I got it right here. We're ready to roll. You know what I'm saying? I looked back on that last night. Somebody sent me a screen grab laughing at it, and I'm like, man, my beard looked like it had the mange. It was pretty rough, man.
You feel like you got rode hard, put away wet. That didn't look good.
Oh, man. All right, man. Last comment. SDM40 says Murphy gets a lot of crap because he's a bit awkward, but check out his resume. He's no joke. Absolutely. I love the people that say, all right, man, he's stupid. Like he's dumb. He's not a very intelligent man. I'm like, boy, you guys have no idea what Mark Murphy's had his hands in his entire life. That dude, first of all, led the league in interceptions 1 year as a safety at the pro level, right? So he's got respect to players. I guarantee you that. And then looking at what he did, I think he was, what was he at Northwestern? Someone also told me, I think he's technically a lawyer too. He's got a law degree, if I remember right.
So yeah.
Look at everything he's built over there at Titletown. Yeah. He's never going to get the respect he deserves. There's times he says stuff and I go, Mark, why'd we say that? But I'd rather somebody be authentic than constantly just, faking it. So Jacob, you got anything else, bub?
No, just stay tuned to us for, what is it, 2:00 Central Time? Or
Yeah, and keep in mind, guys, it's probably not going to be simulcast on this channel. I don't want to take anything away from Jake's channel. So be looking for Jake Shavink's channel at 2 Central, 3 Eastern. We're going to be going live and doing a mock draft extravaganza. I think we're going to do a 3-round mock draft where we're going to be doing a snake draft. We're all picking for the Packers. And this is if I understand it correctly, but we're not allowed to make the same pick. And Jake is picking for the rest of the NFL. So we're going to get through to our pick. And let's say, when you say snake draft, whoever goes first goes last the next pick, right? If I understand correctly. I don't do a whole lot of mock drafts. Let's say Jacob is picking first. And he takes, let's say at 25, let's say he takes Kool-Aid McKinstry, right? And then when we get to my draft and I'm picking second, if Kool-Aid McKinstry's there on my mock draft, I'm not allowed to take him. He's off the board. So it's going to make the choices even tougher on us. So it's going to be a good exercise to kind of understand the depth of everyone's view on these prospects. I'm going to be going off my big board. I'm going to have it handy so I can work it. And that's how I'm just going to kind of stick to my board as we go through. So it should be a lot of fun. So make sure you guys tune into that 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern time on Jake Shavink's channel. Again, I think his channel is just Jake Shavink NFL, I believe is what it is. So
you can find him on X too. I think he goes live on X as well. So
definitely. So appreciate y'all hanging out with us. This was a lot of fun. Special thanks to Tim hopping on here before he had to go to the tent sale to get them deals. Jacob repping over there. We got the merch store. We got the link to the merch store in the description of the video as well as our Patreon group. Been a lot of good messages coming over there. I'm trying to get everybody to communicate in the same chat, but everybody keeps DMing me. That's all right too. But it's a lot of fun kind of seeing that come together over there as well. So if you guys are interested in joining the PTA Posse on Patreon, there's a link in the description of the video for that as well. You can support the show, and that enters you into a chance to win an autographed Paul Hornung jersey on night 1 of the draft there. When we do the round 1 live draft show here on my channel, we're going to be giving that away. I'm thinking somewhere around the 10th pick or so, Jacob. We'll do that giveaway and spin the wheel and get that put together. So
got a pretty cool wheel to spin too.
I'm telling you, bro. If you guys are wondering, what do they mean when they keep saying that? We'll give you a little hint here. All right, Jake, if you want to look away from the screen real quick, it's gonna be something like this right here. All right, maybe one of those right there. Right, these former offensive linemen with mangled hands. But anyway, all right. Thank y'all for hanging out with us. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. And go Pack Go.